welcome back to A Web of Stories. This is my weekly video. Excuse me for the cat, she's here making noise. This is my weekly video where I talk about what I'm reading this week. I'm also going to talk about a book I just finished. I don't normally include like little book reviews in with this, but this book had an effect on me that sort of impacted what I chose to read this week. And I just got out of my Zoom book club discussing it. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about what while it's fresh. And I will start with that. The book that I finished this week was, well, I finished more than this book, but this is the book I'm going to talk about, is Everything Here is Beautiful by Mira T. Lee. I read this for my Diverse Voices book club that's through my public library. This story is about two Chinese American sisters plus two other characters. So one of the sisters, Lucia, she's the younger of the two sisters. She is dealing with schizophrenia or schizoid affective disorder or bipolar. It's talked about in the book how they aren't ever really quite sure what it is that she is dealing with. And then there's her older sister, Miranda, who is her caregiver, who's kind of been her caregiver since they were children. There are also two men in Lucia's life. One is her husband, Yona, who is an older man from Israel. And the other is a younger Ecuadorian man named Manny, who is in the United States without documentation. And I don't want to get more into the situations around there because it might be a little spoilery. But this is a book about mental illness, how it affects the person who is suffering from it and the people who care for them. It is a beautifully written book. It is absolutely heartbreaking. It hit home a little bit for me. It made me cry at the end. So I always have to kind of note that when a book makes me cry and I don't feel manipulated into crying, which I didn't in this one. It really impacted me, and it impacted me in a way that after I finished reading it, I really had to sit and think about how I can continue to read after reading this, but also give this book space to kind of percolate, which is why I chose a couple of the books that I'll be talking about later. So there's a lot of very tough things in this book. Mira T. Lee does not back away from them. And she also writes this book from a place of having experienced many of these situations. I gave this book 4.5 stars, which is an A+. That says a lot. I did want to, however, talk a little bit about my book group. It was a really interesting discussion because so many people were, I'm sorry, the cat is making more noise. So when I say so many people in my book club, there were 9 of us, and all of us were coming to this book from a place where we had some kind of personal experience that kind of fed into this. And so there were a lot of really interesting viewpoints and things that I hadn't realized. One person in this group made a comment that she had an issue with this book, and it was an issue that I did not catch. And it was one that was a big issue for her, and I feel like I should share it because it may be an issue for others. This book is about, having a family member who's dealing with this particular sort of mental illness. There's a comment in the book about how cancer, if you recover from cancer, no one really thinks anything bad about you, but if you have a mental illness, that's a horrible stigma, which is true. But there are also times in this book where the author kind of makes light of other forms of mental illness. The specific example that was brought up, and the one that really resonated with this person in my book group, was there were sort of funny comments made about OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And I did not catch that when I read it. But when she pointed it out and said it's on this page, and I went and looked it up and I read it, I'm like, oh my, that is a thing that happened in this book. And I think it's important to know these things. I'm not changing my rating of this book because of it, because it made me, this experience of hearing my fellow book club member talk about it and point it out in this book, made me realize things about myself. For example, she has a lot of personal experience with her family of OCD, and she says, people think it's funny. People think it's funny because if someone's OCD, that means they clean everything. Oh, ha ha. But she goes, but it's a horrible debilitating condition. And I was thinking about this, and I'm like, there are times when I've said like, oh, I'm being really OCD about this or something. And I realized how wrong it is to do something like that. So I think that the combination of that book club and this book made me think about things that I do in my own life that I need to stop and reevaluate and think, is this really how I want to think of things in my world? I don't want to make light of things like that. But still, love this book, would still highly recommend it, but I would keep that one little issue in mind with it. So after I finished that book, I don't want to say I got into a book slump, but I got to a point where I realized I needed to read something different. I needed to read something that was going to kind of be different enough from that book that I could still let that book have its space, but I could get myself into something else. I do have a book club book coming down the line, which I may read after I finish the current print book I'm on, which is about Asian Americans. So I knew I wanted some separation between that book and this book, just so that the two, it's not two Asian American books right next to each other. My experience of one impacts the mysterious of the other, because it's not fair to either book. So I'm not sure how successful I was in choosing my next books, but let me go through what I'm reading. As for my first print book to pick up after I finished Everything Here is Beautiful, I picked up several different books and tried to feel the one that was going to kind of give me the break that I wanted. And the one I chose might seem a little strange when I mention it, but I'll try and explain. And it's There's No Such Thing as an Easy Job by I'm sorry if I don't say this right. Kikuko Tsumuro. This was recommended to me quite a while ago from the My TBR recommendation service through Book Riot, and I've had it sitting on my shelf. And I've been a little apprehensive about it because the author is Japanese, and this is an award-winning book from Japan. It's in translation. I sometimes struggle with books from Asia, and this is a completely me issue. This is nothing against the books. They're different enough that I sometimes have trouble kind of sinking in and getting a hold into it. And there have been a lot of books I've just kind of put aside. So I was worried about this one. However, I decided to go for it this time because I think the trying to find my way into this book would be a good way to divert my mind from things that were still in Everything Here is Beautiful. I needed something that wasn't especially light, and I did pick up some light books and think, oh, maybe I should do this, because I needed something that would occupy my mind, which is why I chose this one, because it's a different kind of challenge for me. I haven't read that far in it. I just started it yesterday. And this is not a reflection on the book, but I was really tired yesterday. A combination of not getting enough sleep, not drinking enough coffee, and then having a busy morning. So I read a little bit and realized that a better use of my reading time would be to take a nap. So I haven't read that. I have no thoughts on this book yet. The other new book that I started this week is my ebook, and I started Dear Committee Members by Julie Schumacher. This is an epistolary novel. It's a collection of very tongue-in-cheek, passive-aggressive letters of recommendation. It is what I need. This is my lighter book to kind of counterbalance. And I did look. I had a lot of options that I could read. There are a lot of mysteries I want to get into, but I said I needed something that's going to be a little bit of a brain break after Everything Here is Beautiful and with There's No Such Thing as an Easy Job. So I started it last night. I enjoy it. The chapters are super short, so it's an easy book to put down and pick up again, which I like. I'm planning to get through it in a day or two, so we'll see. I should have another ebook going next week. Along with that, I still have my audiobook. I am still listening to The Light We Carry by Michelle Obama, which I'm quite enjoying. I usually only do a chapter a day of that, so it might take me a little more than a week to get through it. I am working my way through the Marple collection with the different authors. And I'll probably do a whole video about that when I finish, because I'm taking notes on it and sort of, I can tell you right now, I'm halfway through the book. It's going to be a 4-star book because it's a short story collection, and almost all my short story collections are 4 stars. But I want to kind of look at the stories individually with the authors, because not all, but most of the authors here are new to me. So I kind of want to talk about what my experience with meeting these new authors, and also my experience with authors that I have already read their works and how they adapt the Marple stories. And then finally, I started my year-long read of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. And yes, I had to stop myself from saying Doctor Strange and Mr. Norrell. But Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. So far, I'm on schedule. I've only read the first chapter, but it was good. I think I'm going to like it. And again, I think this was probably a good choice for a slow and steady read. So that is my week. A little bit of housekeeping. Last week I had filmed a lit chat with my son Chris, and I forgot to upload it. So that will be coming on to the channel this coming Thursday. And then I'm gonna do something different for my Tuesday video. So you'll have to come back and see what that is. But if you enjoyed this, please like my channel, like this video, and subscribe to my channel. And if you stay through to the end of the video or look down in the comment box below, you will see everywhere you can find me on social media. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.